Time being 9 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Engineer Pogozinski, would you like to come up, please?
Morning.
Morning.
I have several items this morning for the agenda. The first item is to request approval to final out project SAP 028-599-081. Actually, two projects tied together, 599081 and 599089. They're replacement of bridges on Wildflower Drive in Winnebago Township and Root Road in Spring Grove Township. Original contract amount $341,265.70. Work certified $351,804.30, and the overage is primarily due to some extra riprap to protect the ditch that had water running through it, along with some extra erosion control pipe.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the final payment on those two projects?
I make that a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next project is project SAP 028-598-009. It's a project with Icon Constructors on County Road 249. Original contract amount $756,243.30. Work certified $748,019.70. So about $8,000 less than the original contract.
It's a good thing.
Move to make final payment.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is, I don't know if I'm going to do this as one motion or five separate motions to approve 5 quotes for flood projects. On one of them is for County Road Casab 4. Second quote is for Casab 11. Third is for Casab 12. County Road 249. And then we have a 5th quote that's for various bridge repairs. So we opened up these 5 separate quotes yesterday. We had 4 bidders on the 4 different road projects. We had 3 bidders on the bridge repair projects. The low bid for the bridge project was Griffin Construction at $64,990. The low bid on project CP 2016-401, which is on Casab 4, is the $11,305, also Griffin Construction. For project CP 2016-1101, which is on Casab 11, low bid was Griffin Construction at $6,500. Project SP 2016-1201 on Casab 12, low bid was Generation X at $38,900. And final project, the low bid was also Generation X, $28,160, and it's on project CP 2016-24901, which would be on County Road 249.
So since they're all flood projects, can we do it under one motion?
Sure.
Okay. And Michelle, you have all the numbers for it, correct?
I do, thank you.
Okay, and then, so we will ask for a motion to approve all the flood projects, the bids on flood projects.
one more thing. All these projects, we're anticipating getting FEMA funding to reimburse us. We're hoping to get all these projects done prior to winter, hopefully prior to FEMA showing up here to go out to these sites to verify kind of the quantities and what's needed out there. So, but it is all projects that we're expecting to get reimbursement on.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve all of the projects.
I'll second it.
I just have one question. On the 2016-24901, the bid on that one
Yes.
is so much lower. No one else even came close.
Yeah.
Were they bidding on the right thing?
Yes, and if you look at the bridges as well, 2016, that's BR01, Griffin was at $64,990. The next bid was at $120,000. These projects are really, in a lot of ways, they are tough to bid for the contractor because for FEMA reimbursement, it's easier to, if you have ditch cleaning, to say we have 150 feet of ditch that needs to be cleaned out.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go to measure, you just measure the length of ditches being cleaned out versus going to estimate the amount of material that's going to be pulled out of that ditch. So contractors are looking at, some of them might think it's going to be 10 loads of material. Different contractor might estimate it's going to become 15 loads of material. There is some more burden put onto the contractor, so it does change prices some. They know that they're going to be digging down to where that previous vegetation was. That's the elevation
Mhm.
there. There's also a lot of mobilization to these sites. These sites are small sites. It's not like they're $1 million sites. Where you bring all your equipment and you're staying there for a long time. A lot of these sites, they're going to be on the roadway for a few days, maybe 2-3 days, 5 sites. So a lot of time moving equipment around, and so that takes some time and energy to move that equipment around. Different contractors can bid that. Cost totally different for mobilizations. So,
Okay.
it's not unexpected to have the bids all over the board with these type of work.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The final item I have, put a copy on everyone's table here this morning. We've been having some issues with our copier, printer, scanner, fax machine over at the highway department. First started showing up here a few weeks ago. All of a sudden, all of our copies had red streaks all over the copies. And we talked to a company that does the repairs for us and tried to get them set up to come out to look at our machine to see what's going on with it and if they can fix it and what the repair estimate would be. So that was about 3 weeks ago. They came out a couple weeks ago. They looked at it and said that the magenta and yellow imaging units were both bad. There's some other little issues that we're having with the machine, lower dollar items. When we started having a look at it, they said the cyan unit is going to be going real soon. They said it's near the very end of its life. So we talked to Andy as far as, do we have them repaired? Do we want to replace it? What do we want to do? About a week ago, the message came up saying that the black imaging unit is bad and that needs to be replaced. So that adds another $740 onto the cost of this. And as of this morning, we can't do anything with that copier. I was hoping to come in on 2 weeks, give some time for the board to think about it. And you don't need to really react today, but so you know, as of right now, we don't have a scanner, fax machine. We can print other printers in black and white. We don't have anything that can go in color right now. Not sure what's going on, but all of a sudden, went from printing red lines when you get copy, get black streaks. Make a copy on a black and white sheet, you'll get color along with it. Have some issues going on, and then, like I said, as of this morning, nothing's working. So, talking to Andy, talking to the repair guy, the quote to get everything repaired, $4,023.62. This is a 2009 unit that the county purchased outright. To do like what we have done at all the other facilities around the county, would be getting a new machine, getting on the maintenance agreement, Purchase cost would be $9,333.27. So
Do you guys have that in your budget anywhere?
we do not have this in our budget. We were just talking about it during budget time. Do we budget for replacement? When? How far out? We didn't expect this to come due like this.
Mhm.
So ultimately, it's going to be tapping into fund balance, or if we have a mild winter, mild start to the winter, we might not have the overtime, save us some salt, it might come back to us that way.
Mhm.
But we did not budget for it initially. But again, though, you look at the cost for $4,000 into a unit that's 7 years old. Life expectancy of the unit, they say, is typically about 1 million copies or 8 years. This is at about 7.5 years. We're at about 700,000 copies, so we're 2/3 of the way there on the number of copies. But the units are also new, so I recommend replacing it. Speaking with Andy, now that he recommends replacing it because it's time.
And then it would be on the same maintenance plan as all the copies at the,
Yeah,
in the
so we'll
county.
get onto the same plan as the rest of the courthouse.
We used to do the lease. Did we ever look at if it pays to go back on a lease versus buying it out?
I can talk to Andy about it. I'm not sure if he has or not. Andy's the one that got this
Sure.
this quote for us and stuff. So I told him, I said I want him to price it out, see what we need. So I can go talk to him for come back to you in just a little bit.
I'm just curious if we know exactly how many copies we got out of it, so that if we can use that for, depending on. I mean, we have some data to go by just to compare.
Do you want Andy to come up? I
Yeah.
think he's done the math on it.
Yeah, maybe that would be
See
good
if he's available.
if you don't mind.
Carol,
Just
do you have any
check all
input on
bases.
this?
Right off the top of my head.
Okay, I didn't know if you had heard anything about it yet, or,
Andy analyzed it when we went to replace the one in the courthouse here, and it was less money to buy them and pay for copies and to lease them.
well, we're starting out with a mild winter.
I didn't feel how much the price was to lease and that we could do that, and it was, I just don't remember what it was off the top of my head, so I think Andy does know.
Well, I remember we went off the lease because of money-wise, but I'm just curious as to, because I mean, the question is, if you lease it, you're paying per copy. We know exactly how many copies we got out of this one, so then the question is, would it be worth it paying per copy versus buying a machine if it's, if they're saying, well, the life expectancy should be 1 million copies in 8 years.
5%.
But if you're only doing, say, 500,000 copies in 8 years, then maybe it would pay to lease it. So just checking it out. But I know we went off the lease for a reason on the other ones, but
Yeah, if I recall correctly, I think Sheila said it would be like 20% higher to go
Mhm.
that route over the purchase. But so we'll see what Andy said when it comes up here.
yeah, just to make sure we touch all bases.
Want me to step back and let Rick come up here and then?
Andy's on his way up.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that this is important enough for your department that we should address it as soon as possible.
Well, you got to have a copier. I mean, it's tough to not have one.
Yeah, I didn't expect all of a sudden this morning to have nothing working.
Yeah.
But like I said, that message came up on the Black about a week ago.
It's the life of electronics.
Come on up, Andy.
Andy, you're on the hot seat.
Actually, it's not so bad.
We're talking about this copy of purchase versus just was asking about have you looked at a lease instead of a picture, so what the cost difference.
Well,
And here's the thing. I know we went off the lease for the other machines.
Yeah.
My question is, knowing that we got 700,000 copies out of this one,
mhm.
when they say, oh, the expectancy of this machine should hit 1 million copies in 8 years, the question then would be, if we're not doing as many copies as we originally, or as that would be expected, would it be better to pay per copy?
I'd have to
in
punch
leasing?
numbers. The rates on the copies go up no matter what, lease or purchase,
Mhm.
depending on the age of the machine.
Mhm.
I'd have to punch the numbers, but I mean, typically you're always better ahead buying it. I mean, if you lease it, I mean, you're just renting it. I mean, you're not getting anywhere, so you're constantly paying for that machine, even after you paid the value of the machine. We're talking about a $8,500 machine. So when we compared with our copy machines here, when we bought them, you know, based on, well, if we just kept them 4 years, we paid for the machines, and we've already kept ours over 4 years. So we came out quite a bit ahead. So I can't off the cuff tell you what his numbers are. I haven't looked at his numbers. I don't know what exactly he paid for that machine at the time. It was, I think when you bought it from Tri-State Business Machines. We bought ours from A+. I mean, it was a completely different bag. So I couldn't tell you exactly how it shakes out. However, typically, I mean, even if you ask the vendors, I mean, you're better at buying the machine just because they're not leasing it to not make money. I mean, that's the whole idea. It's another place they make revenue. So, I mean, off the cuff, I couldn't tell you exactly where he's at, but I mean, we can try and reverse engineer those numbers.
The reason I ask is that I've worked with a few companies now that went back to leasing because of the price per copy versus buying the machine.
Mhm.
If you buy the machine and all of a sudden you're buying the machine for X amount of dollars,
Mhm.
so let's say $8,000.
Sure.
You bought that machine and it lasts you 8 years.
Mhm.
But if you're leasing it and you're leasing it, say, for $2,500 or whatever the case may be, even over the course of 8 years or whatever the case may be, so 4 years and 4 years is $5,000 plus you're paying per copy. If you're not copying as much, you know, if you're paying per copy and you're not copying that much, sometimes that lease works out. I just want to make sure that we're not in that
Right.
that area.
Another situation that happens with leases is they often put a basement on the number of copies. So let's say you didn't make your quota of copies for that month, like you had to make 25,000 copies that month and you only made 10. Guess what? You're paying for 25,000. So there's lots of numbers that put in that equation.
Well-
I mean, we can shoot from the hip all day long and say, well, it might work, but until we have concrete numbers of what a lease would cost versus buying. But again, you know, you need a crystal ball. I can't say that, oh, they're going to go another 800,000 copies in the next 8 years. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm sure they don't either. So it does put you in a situation where it's best guess.
Well, and that's why I wanted you to come up and take a look at this, because I know price per black and white versus price per color. I get
Sure.
that. But here's an instance where we do have a machine over the course of 8 years. This is how many copies we have, so we know what those numbers are. I just want to make sure that we're doing the best thing that we can.
We can definitely take them and punch them in and see if we can find a better value leasing, definitely.
Yeah, and not to say that that's going to work out, you know, because I
Sure.
know we bought the other ones for that specific reason. But I just want to make
Mhm.
sure that we're covering all bases.
Sure. Like I said, when we did ours, we only had to have them for 4 years before they paid for themselves.
Right.
And so, I mean, I feel pretty confident that purchasing again would probably be the best case scenario, but it doesn't mean I won't give it a fair shake and look at the lease numbers.
Yep, yep.
Could we go ahead with a purchase unless a lease turns out to be less? I mean, I just look at the highway department without their copier scanner and everything else. And we're not meeting next week, so it would mean they're out at least 2 weeks.
Well, and I think we could do something too, I mean, as far as, you know, if they can get something, whichever is the better route to go with it, you know, I mean.
This is also a unique situation too that we should probably note. Being that this machine was initially purchased through Tri-State Business Machine, they had a maintenance contract with it, and their rates were going through the roof. I mean, they were going up not just 5% a year, they're going up 20. I mean, their price, I mean, they were going up significantly to the point where like, wow, we got to get out of this, because we're starting to get killed with these price per copies. So this machine is kind of a unique situation that it had to go off a maintenance contract. Now, in the event that we had a different one where we had a maintenance contract that was adequate, that was meeting our needs, I mean, we could be in a completely different scenario. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So this one was an anomaly that we had to get off of it just because the rates were changing so much.
Sure.
So we attempted to put this on the same maintenance contract as the rest of our copy machines, but we were unable to do that based on the age of the machine. You know, another vendor coming in, taking a look at the machines, like, well, we have to have this much money to put it on to match these other ones. It just wasn't cost effective at that point either. So this one was kind of
But we can go through that now and get on sync
right.
with
We
all
can
the
get on
other
that.
ones, right?
Right, we can get on the same maintenance contract or the same vendor. It would be even better rates than we had if you ended up getting a new one. There are better rates than what we're even right now because the rates change as the life of the machine goes. So.
What kind of a replacement cycle are you on with copy machines?
Well, like I said, the goal is $1 million per copy machine. We have some departments that have already got up to 700,000. We have some departments that are still only at like 250,000. So what we try and do is rotate them. So a heavier department will we'll swap machines out, even though it's the same machine. They'll just balance the copies a little bit more.
Yeah.
We don't want to get to a situation where we're buying 8 copy machines a year. That's
No.
not going to work. But we do want to try and, maybe 1, maybe 2, depending on how it shakes out, and try and keep that level so we're not having this huge cash outlay.
Well, we know what the price of that new one is. So, Judy, your thoughts are approve a new one, but just see if there happens to
Yeah.
be one that, yeah.
Yeah, so if we could get a motion to approve the purchase of that printer, but with look at the lease, and if the leasing's less, go that
Yes,
way?
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And if it's not, then they get the new one.
right.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that a motion.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Buy or lease, whichever's the most economical.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But we know what a new one is, so
Yeah.
worst case scenario, get a new one.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Ryan, how soon did they say they could have one here for you? If you buy, like,
I honestly, I don't have that information yet.
I'll quote you on that. Quick enough.
Mr. Frank and Mr. Locker, would you like to come up, please? Good morning.
Go through it again.
What we want to do is basically inform the board here, a meeting that Aaron, myself, and Dana attended the first part of October. What we wanted to do is look at the Board of Soil and Water Resources is drafting silica sand mining rules and how they affect the counties. And there was a lot of, it was a good discussion meeting. We had a lot of back and forth between the state and the counties. And it's, we're talking all the counties, most counties in southeast Minnesota. They're having several of these meetings around the state to look at those and get input. And it was just basically input from counties at this point. They have not gone out for public notice yet on any of these, but there's a lot of good discussion. And I'll have Aaron highlight the points that we basically were covering through that meeting and the effects that both sides had on the new rules coming up. So.
Sure. So what they have now is they have a draft rule out there for review. This process was one whereby they solicited the counties for feedback on their draft rules. Some points of interest from the current version of this draft, they do differentiate between silica sand and other types of sand. They define silica sand as material excavated from a formation of deposit where the grain size distribution is at least 50% sand by weight and where at least 90% of the formation or deposit's grain is crystalline quartz. Practically speaking, it sounds as if we would be looking at the formation. So if a material is coming from the Jordan, from the Wanawak, or from the St. Peter Formation, we would consider it silica sand, and these rules would apply. I should say that once these rules are finalized, they're encouraging counties to adopt the rules by ordinance, but it is their opinion that they apply regardless of whether they do or not. There was some question as to how the enforcement would work in an instance where a county doesn't adopt the rules. That will still have to be assessed, I suppose, but there is a scenario whereby we would be enforcing these even if we didn't adopt them. And if they work in concert with our current ordinance, it would only make sense to adopt them. The process that we went through with the rulemaking, the DNR point person on the rulemaking, is intended to mold them so that they do work in concert with the existing ordinances that counties have on the books. These rules would apply to all new sites where 2 or more acres are proposed to be excavated. So on our recent changes, we used an acreage limit of 20 trigger certain things, this would be triggered at a much lower acreage. Similar to the framework that we use, though, these rules would exempt sites where the material is being mined for a public works project. So if it's something for a road actually I should specify it's not any public works project, it's a transportation-related public works project. So bridge or road would be exempt. The benefits we anticipate from this rule would be that establishment of minimum requirements for reclamation. We have some framework right now for what reclamation will consist of. That needs to be flushed out. Perhaps this would essentially do that for us. It would standardize the reclamation across the state with what I would, in my opinion, is a fair level of detail in its current version. Operators are required to provide RGUs with annual reports. This is useful in that it's taking care of a lot of the documentation that currently is being done by staff in this county or other counties. That would be a benefit from my perspective. It's providing some guidance on high wall reduction. Right now, we don't have really any framework for how we would treat high walls within our ordinance. That's a weakness in my opinion, and if we had some guidance from the state on what that ought to look like to be in a stable state post-mining during the reclamation process and onward, view that as a benefit. Provide some guidance regarding the financial surety, and again, that's an area where we need to do some work in this county. If detailed instructions came out as part of this reclamation process, that might be something we could apply just to not only silica sand operations where we'd be required to implement it, but all other sites too, because it's the intent here is to protect the county from potential costs. And they are emphasizing a focus on post-mining use, defining in the planning process, identify what you would do with the site after it's reclaimed. Right now, we often see it in prairie, pasture, something like that. I don't know what they might come up with, but if they come up with something that's more beneficial to really the citizens of the county, all the better. Now we have some concerns about the proposed rules too. There's a lot of administrative requirements in the rules as they currently exist that are not always in concert with the procedures we use for things like CUPs or interim use permits. We need those to be working in concert. We don't want two different timeline tracks or a 30-day requirement in terms of reclamation and a 60-day requirement in terms of operation. This was a concern that was expressed by many of the counties in attendance at the meeting, and they're working to look at the statutory requirements which drive our timelines and processes and trying to maybe do another run of edits that would ensure their reclamation requirements work in unison with the requirements that are already being used for permitting of these types of operations. The other effect this might have that would perhaps be negative is it may be a greater burden on smaller producers than larger producers. A larger company that's operating in several counties may be better equipped to handle the reporting and the application requirements that are part of this right now than, say, a smaller site or a smaller operator that operates a few smaller sites in a single county. Because of the 2-acre minimum here where this kicks in, and because we're looking purely at formation from which we're taking the material and not anything else really, there's the possibility where we would have a site that's being operated for ag sand or construction sand being caught in this net here. It might add additional costs that would make operating more difficult for them than a larger operator who would have maybe staff people who prepare these types of reports for them and are really versed in what the rules are. So that, again, that's a concern we express to the DNR, and they're taking into consideration when they're doing their additional rounds of edits. Like I said, Dan, if you had any other insights from this meeting that we haven't brought up.
You've covered it pretty good.
So let me ask you this question. They're defining silica sand as what layer they're getting it from and all that kind of stuff, right?
I mean, the definition goes beyond that, but practically speaking, we have some questions about, well, do we have to hire a geologist to determine whether this is meeting your definition or not? And the answer to that was, practically speaking, it's really going to be driven by what formation you're pulling material from.
So does this put to bed the argument of, well, sand is sand? 'Cause we hear that all the time, and this is pretty much saying, no, it's not. It depends on what layer you're in, correct?
That's what these draft rules are doing.
Are they going to be having more meetings on these?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
They took our concerns from staff across the southeast, and there was a lot of, I think the meeting went about 3 hours. And that there was a number of things that she was not aware of at the meeting that she's going back now and take a look at and have that discussion with their staff. And it sounded like there was going to be additional follow-up with meetings.
They're doing this according to the Administrative Procedures Act. So right now we're on step 3, rule development. Once they finalize something, there's a series of steps that follow that. But I would expect, as Rick said, that they would be back in touch with counties before they move to finalize, because they're really wanting. My impression was they were wanting to work with counties, to have counties adopt this, and to have it work in unison with the way we're already permitting these things with comps and interims.
I remember Heather drew a large circle for silica sand in their county, and then she sliced off just the edge of it and said, "This is your frac sand." And I asked her, I said, "So frac sand is an end use thing for frac sand. It's all, you all have silica sand." But when it was a real good, I wish I could do better. Her, she had a large circle and she sliced off just the edge of it and said, "That's your frac sand." It depends on the end use.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Silica sand, we all have silica sand.
And then that goes with the argument of end use,
Yeah.
like, can you decipher between end use? Well, technically, yeah.
Yep.
And that's where
Yes, you can.
the discussion, some of that discussion was centering around the amount that the ag community is using versus, the industrial side of it. And, she did a nice job on the presentation.
Yes, she did.
They said there was a lot of good follow-up discussion on just that very question, is what you just brought up.
Right.
These again would be, we understand them to be minimum standards, so in the same way that we administer the feedlot program or bluff protection statutes, that we would be allowed to be more restrictive should we want to, but this would set a baseline of where we would have to, at a minimum, set the standards.
Thanks for keeping us posted. What was the grant again that we just got notice that we got through pollution control?
Oh, that was our SCORE money.
Great.
We roughly receive about, it's just short of $70,000. And every county in the state's they get a certain amount. We've got certain requirements that we need to meet to get that money, and we've met all the requirements that they have. So, they're again now going to fund Houston County's SCORE money.
Good. That was good news. And do you want to share about the rates for the garbage?
Oh, last Wednesday, Judy and I attended the La Crosse County Policy Board meeting. There was 3 items really that I think we need to keep the board informed that's coming down. One is, what's good news, is that the tip fee for the landfill and the incinerator will not change for 2017. There will be no increase. The other thing, item that we had some discussion on, lengthy discussion, was their landfill, with the amount of material that's coming in, has been going up and up the last 3 years. They're going to need to put ahead the development of new cells. So what they're using is partial fund balance that they have, plus bonds that La Crosse County will take out to basically start in 2017, developing 2 new cells, one in 17 and one in 18, to meet our demands that are going on. And La Crosse County is, like I said, they're keeping us outside counties informed, because we have just as much at stake with this thing, with our contracts and everything else, and it does work well between the communications with these policy board meetings that take place in that. The third item that is going to come up with this board probably in 2017 is the extension of the existing contract we have with La Crosse County. That contract now runs to the year 2023. They're looking at already negotiating with Excel to extend that contract another 7 years. Now, we do have a financial responsibility. We've you know, with the burner upgrade and different things that we have done in the past and agreed to. What they're looking at is the outside counties, if they're extending it another 7 years, they also want to have the discussion with a number of us counties that use that facility of also extending our contract so that it coincides with each other. And they just started putting out that notice out to counties that they would like to start to have that discussion probably next year. And they would like to extend that to the year 2023. I will say we have, in this county, it has benefited us with the use of, you know, their programs. We do, with the contract, we do not get treated any different than a La Crosse resident. For full use of everything they have over there, from the incinerator to the landfill to their also hazardous waste, that has worked very well for us. And also that, like I said, it basically, if we have a contract like this, it's in our solid waste plans. It basically keeps our refuse that they charge, like city contracts and everything. If everybody's on the same page here, it keeps them pretty well in line and competitive. Your small haulers and everything can stay competitive with the larger. So with that, like I said, everybody, it's a big plus for us going down, and I think to seriously look at extending that contract with La Crosse. But that discussion will be coming up here next year, and how you as a board want to address that at just a couple of commissioners meeting, or if you want as a full board to have that discussion, or how you want to handle that is, I'll leave some directions for the board.
Okay, thank you.
The last thing I just want to mention, I did bring this up in the, and I just want to make sure that the public is aware of it. Christmas Eve falls on a Saturday this year, and I know I'm having input from my staffing at the drop sites about a Saturday being open on Christmas Eve. Some of them like leave town and everything else, and I'm inclined, I'd like to board approval just to close them. I know the courthouse closed it also that day, but I'd also like to close the drop site to give families and stuff, or give them a chance to go there.
And to be honest with you, I guess my gut reaction would be, how many people are going to go to the dump on Christmas Eve anyway?
No.
Would it just make sense to just?
We mentioned that too.
Yeah.
How busy is it going to be?
And
Yeah.
what I do is I'd advertise it, and you know, stuff in the drop sites also. I mean, they're pretty good about holidays rolling around. We have been keeping them open and working around it, but I still think this is important for them.
I can see like after Christmas and January
Yeah.
and all this stuff. You know,
They'll,
they're busy.
they'll pay for their day off.
Yeah. that'll be-
You'll
yeah.
pay. We'll pay through the week.
Yeah.
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 You board action on that?
Yeah, I'd appreciate it.
Motion to have the county drop sites closed on Saturday, Christmas Eve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Sheriff Inglet?
Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
I've asked, Tom Tornstrom is the Executive Director of Tri-State Ambulance, to come with me today, and also Mike Tornstrom, Director of California Ambulance. What we're seeking is approval for Houston County to enter into agreement with Gunderson Lutheran for emergency medical dispatching service that they provide. I'm happy to bring this service to Houston County, to our citizens. I think through a partnership with Gunderson Lutheran. You might be asking, what is emergency medical dispatching, since we have a dispatch center. Basically, it's a service that Gunderson provides where when someone calls in on 911 with a medical emergency, our dispatch center can then patch them through to Gunderson's medical call center. And that caller then can be put in touch with someone that's trained in talking these people through medical emergencies and so forth. Our dispatch would continue to page out the appropriate EMS, get ambulances, first responders, those types of units responding, and then they can patch this caller through. A good scenario, Tom can maybe elaborate more on that, but if you have a loved one that you call in 911 because they're having difficulty breathing, and all of a sudden they collapse and go into cardiac arrest, you've got someone on the other end of the phone that can help talk you through starting CPR, those types of things. At very minimum, it would be at least somebody on the other end of the phone to talk to you until help arrives. Our dispatchers can't always stay connected with the 911 call. They have other things going on. There might be other 911 calls coming immediately after your call, so they're not always able to stay in touch. It can make a life-changing difference in situations such as strokes and heart attacks, severe bleeding. Gunderson provides the training for our dispatchers. Gunderson provides at least some communication equipment for us. Virtually there's no cost involved to Houston County. The only thing we'd have to provide is a computer with internet access, which we currently have in the dispatch center anyways. So there, like I said, there wouldn't be any cost. There's only 3 counties, I think, that Gunderson is providing this service for at this time. So we'd be one of 4 now. So I feel very fortunate that Gunderson is willing to bring that service to Houston County, and that's in part thanks to relationships developed, and Tom Tornstrom was a proponent of bringing it to Houston County, and he had some influence with Gunderson Lutheran there as well.
Darren Wendell was showing me that one day. I was over there meeting with him, and he was talking about that that service being provided. And obviously, I guess from my aspect, it would be a no-brainer. Obviously, we would like to have that service.
I think it's a fantastic service to provide for our citizens. And like I say, I feel fortunate that Gunderson's willing to bring that to Houston County, because it's not offered everywhere.
No,
So the
it's a good thing.
911 dispatcher would just patch it through?
To the call center, yeah.
Okay.
Right, and good morning. Kudos to Sheriff England as well. This is something that we've been working on or hoping to do for a lot of years, and the Sheriff was very open to taking this on, so it's a great thing. And I'm also a resident of Houston County, so there's an interest there as well. But La Crosse County, Jackson County, and Winona County are on board already, and have been actually La Crosse County since 2008, so we've been doing it there. And it's really quite seamless. All the legal work, I believe, has been done on both ends now. And the dispatch center is actually a department of Gunderson Health System, so they're in our main building over across in Tri-State's main building. But really seamless, and I think we can get this thing up and going in 60 to 90 days probably. Most of the legwork's done already.
Definitely seems like it'd be the right thing to do.
Wonderful.
You just need board action just to go into agreement? Is that what
Yeah, we just need board approval to enter into this agreement. And as I explained in the email, Attorney Yontis has reviewed it, actually suggested some changes that Gunderson's legal department agreed with. I verified that they are in the current contract or the updated contract. The only thing additionally is they don't specify an authorized signer. I would just ask that since it'll be the sheriff's office utilizing the service, I'd ask that the board approve the sheriff as the signer for the agreement.
So let's do this. I will move that Houston County enter into emergency management agreement with Gunderson Lutheran Tri-State Ambulance and having Sheriff Englet as the authorized signer for that contract.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? How long is this contract good for?
It's good for 1 year. It automatically renews
Okay.
at the end of that year, but there is a 30-day out on both parties.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Commissioners.
The consent agenda, would someone want to make a motion that we approve the correspondence to payroll regarding recent changes?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go down before we start the commissioner stuff, so Dana has a chance to know what's coming up after this, okay? We'll start at year-end commissioner reports, but we're going to do approve the claims, human services, and license center disbursements. Is there a
I'll make
motion?
motion to approve the claims.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Chomey, would you like to start?
No, thanks for
Commissioner
giving me
reports?
time to say I don't have a report.
I actually don't have a report either. Our family collaborative meeting with the school districts was canceled last week.
Same here. Quiet week.
Yeah, it was a pretty quiet week. I had a conference with everyone from our Bluff Country, HRA, and some things that we're working on. We signed up to get this grant where we can help low-income people just starting out with a loan, and it's available through most of the local banks, but we bring it into the county as a service. And then we have a place called Vesterheim. It's in Preston, and we had more section, or we're losing 3 rental assistant apartments in there, and so the state pulls it if you're not using it, and we argued to keep it because that's what they're built for. But right now we don't have those 3 units being used, so they're giving them to another place. So if we come to it again, we're going to have to fight to get them back. But just so that you guys know that that's where we're at with the housing assistance, because it's part of our county's program also. That's all I have. Is there any other business to come before the board?
No, just reminder, no meeting next week.
Right, there's no meeting next week, and also on November 5th, after our meeting, we're going to have a meet and greet for John Puglisa, the new director for human services, and
You said that's on the 15th?
15th. Yeah.
15th. And on the 22nd, we have Board of Public Health, Joint Board of Public Health coming up, so that you put that on your calendar so that we,
That's 22nd?
the 22nd,
Is
yes.
that going to be in Mabel again?
Yes.
Yeah.
That works out kind of between both.
Do you know what we're running into
It's
again,
next
though?
building,
Is
too.
department head meeting is the same day. So
We-
maybe since it's early enough in the month,
Well, we talked about that in what we were, Steve and I talked about the department head meeting with the rest of the department heads, is the fact that it's a department head meeting. A lot of the department heads felt they can continue and run the meeting without the commissioners being there and just keep it going as is, and somebody can just report. Then we don't have to keep interrupting and disrupting and rearranging. Just if
Okay.
it ends up falling on a day that the commissioners can't be there, then the commissioners aren't there, but the department heads can continue on.
Okay,
business
well,
as
maybe
usual.
if we could make it so the people who were supposed to be at that would contact people who had been at the meeting to
Yeah,
make
just
sure that
update
we
it.
have that communication going, so it just doesn't get left.
Yep.
So Teresa and Dana, if you could follow up on
Sure.
that. And it's the first Tuesday of the month, so on this time, we're taking public comment. Would anyone like to approach the board for public comment today? Ms. Krogstad?
Yvonne Krogstad, Caledonia Township. Last Thursday night, I attended the Board of Adjustment meeting. I listened to the request of the person who wanted 4 different variances in order to increase his feedlot operation from 50 animal units to 200 animal units. There were several people who spoke in opposition, including the Houston County Administrator, Houston City Administrator, and a city councilman, plus homeowners close by that operation. There was one person who spoke in favor of increasing that feedlot, saying we need to encourage young farmers. The only person who listened to the concerns of all the operation was Mr. Hafner. Mr. Orr and Mr. Myrie obviously made up their mind without regard to any of the opposition. This is unacceptable as members of that Board of Adjustment. They are supposed to be impartial. And again, I say, he was requesting 4 different variances. It was ridiculous. So for that reason, and since the members of the Board of Adjustment serve at your pleasure, you need to replace both Mr. Orr and Mr. Myrie the first of the year, if not sooner. Mr. Orr is not eligible to serve another term anyway. So think very carefully, because the people you have on that Board of Adjustment are not fair to the people of this county. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment? There being no further comment,
I think we do replace them in December of each year, the Board of Adjustment, right?
Well,
Well,
they've got their terms. I don't know what
Yeah.
the term schedule is, right?
that's what we have to look at in December, though. It's coming up. Any further business to come before the board?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.